Is back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes.
He's going for it.
Yes! Oh my goal! What a goal!
And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3-2.
Hello, welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. Well, we are live here on Twitter Spaces talking all things Club America versus Philadelphia Union. Obviously, it's not the result that us Union fans were hoping for as the Union lose 2-0 to Club America. But thank you to everybody that is joining right now on Twitter Spaces that I'm sure have a lot to say, and I can't wait to hear from so many different people's thoughts on the game against Club America. But it is my absolute honor to welcome on a guy who is still in Mexico, I believe it is. You guys have heard him on the trivia shows. You guys have heard him and I speak multiple times just about the Philadelphia Union. He is Mike Thomas. Mike, thanks for joining us live from down in Mexico. How is it, man?
Yeah, I got to tell you, it's been an incredible experience. If this ever happens again, I highly recommend it. Just the city itself, and it's been incredible just exploring it, and seeing Azteca in person was unbelievable. Even though there weren't like a ton of fans there last night, it got really loud at times. So I can only imagine what like a USA-Mexico game would be like when that place is packed to the gills and stuff. So yeah, it was an awesome time. The fans were actually pretty cool for the most part. I think there was a couple knuckleheads hawking loogies, and I think someone threw a battery at one point and locked someone in the bathroom where they had to jump a wall. But most of it was actually pretty friendly banter. But that police escort was a fun experience, I guess.
Absolutely. So, I mean, for everybody that's listening, I think Azteca, they only had 25% capacity. I think, that stadium holds like 81,000 people. And so on TV, it didn't look like a ton of fans were there, but you could definitely hear people making noise. And I'm pretty sure every now and then you could hear the Sons of Ben fans, you guys making noise. So well done to, 65 of you, I think, went down there?
Yeah, we were doing our best to be loud and see if they could hear us down on the field. So, hopefully some of that got through. We got ushered out pretty fast at the end there. So I know Jin and Kai, there was that picture of them clapping, but I think I was probably out already in the concourse by the time that happened, which is a shame. But yeah, man, it was incredible. I'll tell you, though, it was tough to really see what was going on from how high up we were. Plus, I had quite a few beers and mezcal shots ahead of the game. But no, the good thing is the highlights down here are much more comprehensive than we would get at home. So I was able to catch up a lot of the game and what happened this morning.
Absolutely. So that is one thing I wanted to ask. I'm glad you brought it up, is you said you had a lot of beer. So I've talked about it a couple times on the show where I was just blown away with how cheap alcohol, just the food, anything you get in Mercedes-Benz Stadium was. And we know how expensive beers are, waters, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is in Subaru Park. It's like overly priced. What were the prices like down at the Azteca?
Yeah, I think beers probably netted out to be about like $5 American for each beer, which is pretty good, and that's the stadium pricing markup down here too. Wow. You know, if you have a bar ahead of time, it's way cheaper. So yeah, I got to say, if you're looking for a cost-effective drinking trip, Mexico City may be it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, let's get into the game, right? 2 minutes into the game, Sergio Santos, Sergio Daniel, and Leon Flock, they all press up high on Club America. Sergio's out on the wing, gets the ball, plays a good ball into Daniel Gazdag. It looked like Daniel Gazdag got two guys' ankles, played the ball to Casper. Casper tries to back here it, and the ball doesn't go in the back and then the net. And the Union can have started that game any better than what they did the first 2 minutes. I'm sure it caught Club America by surprise, and not only the players on the field, but probably the fans too. There was probably a moment where those fans just went because they couldn't believe it. And Casper, I mean, I don't know how he doesn't put that in the back of the net, but What were your guys' reactions when you guys saw that play develop within the first 2 minutes?
Yeah, I think we are all really hopeful going in, right? So, I mean, that was encouraging, and Blake looked really sharp the entire game. I thought he was almost going to single handedly keep us in it. So, but I mean, it was clear like America was definitely the better team, right, and dominating most of it. So we were going to have to get lucky no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing, right? Is the Union, we're used to them high pressing teams in MLS, but when you're in such a high altitude, I believe over 7,000 feet above sea level, you're not going to be pressing the whole game. And then especially a team like Club America, where if people watch Liga MX, not many teams are successful in pressing Club America. They're so good at just passing out of the press. And so the Union, they pick and chose when they wanted to press on the night. But like I said, the first 2 minutes of the game, Casper, just how don't you put that ball in the back of the net? Sergio Daniel and Leon Flock, just good awareness from those guys to steal the ball off of, I forget what player it was for Club America, but that's the moment right there for the Union. That was the moment, and I think out of the whole 90 minutes, that was the best the Union, the best chance they had on the night. And as an England fan, I'm sure a lot of people know, I was a little bit worried. I was like, the Union score so early. I still have PTSD when Luke Shaw scored against Italy so early on, and then England parked the bus, and Italy just kept coming at them more and more throughout the game, and then eventually the goal came for Italy in the second half. So I was like, yeah, I can't take an early goal again just to see a team park the bus and see all the pressure go to the Union. So I mean, I guess for my sake, it's good that the Union didn't score, but that really could have changed the whole game if the Union would have scored within the first 2 minutes.
Yeah, man. And I mean, like, you got to keep in mind, too, just like payroll discrepancy. Like, Club America has like a $70 million payroll, and we have like a $7 million payroll, right?
Yeah.
It's literally like a 10 times difference. And that's probably not even factoring in Montero being out. So, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's definitely David versus Goliath. It's a shame they couldn't keep it to just one goal. But, yeah, I'll let you go and get a few other guys in here.
Hey, yeah, no problem. Hey, thanks for stopping by, Mike.
All right. Take it easy, guys.
Awesome. What's up, Tyler? So I know you texted me, you said, yeah, you have a lot to say, a lot you wanted to talk about in that game. Your thoughts, man. You didn't go to Mexico, but you watched the game from home like most of us. And that chance by Casper, your thoughts, man?
Well, I totally agree. I think they couldn't have started the game better. I was so impressed with the fluency and awareness by like you said, Sergio and Daniel. And it was so amazing. And I questioned the back heel, and then when it didn't go in the net, I was just so upset. But it was so disheartening to see them unlock our press so easily, it seemed like. But I mean, like you said, that's what they're known for, is unlocking and breaking down a press with passes and smooth, fluent runs, and that's exactly what they did to score their first goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man, absolutely. I mean, it's they get a chance that early on. I mean, I know I didn't expect it, and
no way.
Ochoa was beat. I mean, he couldn't react to it because I guess he expected the defenders to get to the ball, and they were beat by Gazdag, and Casper is free, and I guess the back heel is all he had, and to see that not go in the back of the net, it's disheartening, right? I mean, there's so much that we can talk about the game, but like I said earlier, in my opinion, that was probably the Union's best chance on the night. And if you just go ahead and look at Casper's stats, this guy gets so much slander on social media. So many people just, I feel like, don't appreciate what Casper does for this team. And I get it. He's a number 9, and his job is to score goals, and he hasn't been scoring goals in MLS. And yeah, he's the leading goal scorer in CONCACAF Champions League with 5 goals, and he could have added to his tally early on, but he had 32 touches on the night. He was 8 out of 16 passing, 6 out of 13 ground duels won, 5 out of 6 aerials won in the air, obviously, fouled 5 times. But then looking at his heat map, he was primarily hugging the right touchline, which we've complained about this before. Union fans, I know I've had people on the podcast complain about this. I don't know. Maybe you've complained about this before, Tyler, on the podcast, where Casper is a tall striker, and you don't want Casper sending in crosses going out wide, holding up the play. You want Casper inside the penalty area, getting the ball sent to his head or to his feet. You don't want Casper, one of your slower strikers, maybe your slower striker, sending crosses into the box.
No, for sure. And to address the slander real quick, like you said, firstly, look, he's a gamer, all right? He's not a flashy goal scorer. He's not going to put up insane numbers. He's going to do the dirty work to also set up the goals. He's going to win your aerial battles constantly, like you just said. I mean, what was he, 5 for 6 on the night or 6 for 6? Like,
Yeah, 5 out of
insane.
6 aerials.
Yeah, so, I mean, he's doing his job. Other than putting the ball in the back of the net, look, there's other guys we brought in specifically to do that. So I don't think it should be put all on Casper. Unfortunately, he does play the number 9. That you could say that is your primary role, but sometimes you do have to do the dirty work, and I think he's fabulous at that. And he's a gamer, and I love him. But I do agree with some of the slander. It is warranted. He hugs the right side of the field constantly on this show. You've said this, and it happens again, and here we go. So I just don't know with Casper right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody else that's on Twitter Spaces, I mean, if you want to talk, just hit that speak button, and we'll get you guys in here to give your thoughts and everything. Like I said, I mean, there's a lot to talk about, a lot to complain about. I'm sure everybody that's in here right now, you guys listening to this podcast, maybe not live, you guys have seen all the complaining on social media. But look, let's go ahead and talk about my number one issue off the bat, which was it a penalty by Jose Martinez? Look, I think there was contact, right? Slight contact. But anything in the penalty box is definitely a penalty, right? But my whole issue is the referee had a clear view on it, and he waved away. Like, he was like, yeah, no, I'm not giving this penalty. I'm not giving this as a penalty. And the play goes on. And then you have the Club America fans and the refs here yelling at him, like, go to VAR, go to VAR, go to VAR. And he eventually goes to VAR. But we've seen so many VAR checks where if they know it's a penalty, they come right back. But it seemed like the referee was stalling. Like, it seemed like he couldn't find anything that was clear and obvious. And he comes back and obviously points to the spot, and Club America point to get the second goal, and the rest history, right? I mean, it sucks that we conceded so late on in the game where we worked our tails off defensively. It was always going to be hard to get a goal, but to concede that second goal and off of an iffy penalty, yeah, I don't agree with that, especially, like I said, just when the referee had a clear vision of the play going on, and he says, play on, no penalty, no penalty. And you go ahead and you watch. It's the slightest of contact. Yes, it's contact in the box, which should be a penalty, right? But VAR has always been told if it's not clear and obvious, then all right, it's not a penalty. And I don't see in any of the reviews how it was clear and obvious. Just tell your thoughts when the referee said no penalty and then goes to VAR and says penalty.
Well, I think that's the biggest thing. Look, you are the official. You have a clear view. If you are waving off the penalty when you have the clear view, I don't think there's even a necessity to go to VAR. The referee was right there. He has a clear line sight. That is in the rules. Right there. He gets the say if he has a clear line of sight. We don't go to VAR if he has a clear line of sight. So I don't understand the reason to go. And I totally agree. Yes, contact in the box, penalty. No matter the circumstance, if it's a foul in the box, penalty. But this, he waved it off, and to go back is so frustrating. And the problems with CONCACAF and VAR seem to strike the union again. It's just disheartening.
Yeah, I mean, what? The union have given up a fair share of penalties this season. If I had
and
it up,
teeth.
Yeah, right. If I had enough time to look up how many penalties the union have conceded, maybe throughout this I'll go ahead and look it up and everything. But yeah, I mean, it's so unfortunate that they give up that penalty, and like I said, like you said, and I'm sure other people probably feel the same way. That look, it was. The referee says no penalty, and he goes straight to VAR after he gets confronted by a whole bunch of players, and nothing Andre Blake could do, right? He saved the penalty we saw against Soteldo. We saw him save the penalty against Gustavo Bo in New England, and couldn't save this one. So, I mean, Andre Blake's a pretty good penalty saver, and it was a good penalty, and that moment, you can tell when they put the camera straight on Andre Blake's face and everything. He was a little bit nervous, right? Where he knows that it's a big moment in the game. I mean, the 80th minute, you have 10 more minutes to get out of here with only giving up one goal. Look, that's a great result for the Union, just giving up one goal. And I don't think giving up 2 goals is the worst thing in the world. I think the Union can definitely come back and score 2 goals in Subaru Park. But the problem is, if Club America scores first, then the Union need to get 2 more goals. So that not getting the away goal definitely hurts the Union, in my opinion. But I don't think this thing's over. Now, just like I said, if anybody wants to give the thoughts on just anything that happened in this game, feel free to hit the speak button, and I'll give you the chance to speak. I know I saw there was like 11 people out in this thing at one time, and 3 people hit. They wanted to speak, and I want Mike Thomas to give his thoughts since he's down in Mexico, and he's like, yeah, I'll give you some time. You want to hop on here, so thank you, Mike, for hopping on and just sharing your experience down in Azteca. But look, the first thing that started all this was, forget the penalty for a second, the foul on Bizo, where he gets his tooth slapped out. And look, it's not like it's a baby tooth, right? It's a full adult tooth. And to lose an adult tooth, yeah, it's got to be some serious force. And to not even get a foul. Now, look, I get it. Maybe it didn't look that bad. These guys are going side to side, just fighting for the ball. But when the medical staff comes onto the field and they're working on this guy, and I don't know if the referee saw that he was missing a tooth. I don't know if the training staff said, hey, look, our guy just got his tooth knocked out. But because of that, I feel like the ref should have at least went to VAR. I mean, look, he has the headpiece on. His VAR people, I'm sure, are constantly looking at that. And there's no way you can tell me that they didn't see his tooth fly out. So how that wasn't a foul, I'm not saying it should have been a red card, right? Maybe a yellow card, but for sure the Union should have got a foul there, and they got nothing. Your thoughts, though, on that challenge that Bizo took, Tyler?
Well, I mean, that's the perfect example, like you said, where you would think they would go to VAR after a huge collision. I mean, you see this in the Premier League constantly. Even if it's just everybody's fine. If there's a big collision, they still make sure there's no foul. So for them not to go to VAR, it was like, I guess we should have known. I guess we should have known from the jump. Wow, this one might not go our way tonight with the officials, but. Yeah, just very disheartening. I pray Mbizo's okay, and he can get good dental work down there for what it is, and not like I can't trust or I guess we can all not trust the Union medical staff to not take care of him, but it's just it's a bad situation. It's a bad look for CONCACAF, and I something's got to be done, man, with VAR and the officials. It's ugh.
Look, dude, it's CONCACAF, right? So.
Yeah,
the Union got CONCACAF. Look, I saw, I don't know if this is on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, I don't know. A lot of people have a lot of different thoughts all over social media, so it's hard to keep track where you read a whole bunch of stuff. But somebody made a really good point. I'm sure we all remember that challenge that Kai Wagner took down in Saprissa by the Saprissa guy. And no yellow card, nothing was given out for that challenge. And I feel like if that wasn't a red card, then there was no way the referee was going to give the Club America guy a yellow card for the challenge on Bizo.
Oh, 1,000%. Like I said from the jump, or I guess we all said from the jump, it's CONCACAF. We're going to get CONCACAF, and CONCACAF is going to CONCACAF. So here we are. We're 2-0 down. Like, I totally agree with you. And I sent you a text earlier. We're totally not out of this. I think we can absolutely score even 3 goals, I'd say, if we come out on fire in Subaru Park. You know, we're at home. The boys play great at home. I'm not depressed down in the dumps that we're knocked out of this thing like I'm seeing a lot on Twitter, but it's very disheartening, and I guess that could be the theme of the game. It's just disheartening.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, 1-0, that is definitely doable in Subaru Park. But then you go down 2 goals. Like I said, I mean, you're forced to score a goal within the first 10 minutes, I feel like. And can the Union do it? Yes. But the one thing I will give credit to Club America is they forced the Union to play right down the middle. The Union strong suit is not to get assists with the 2-8s. They play down the wings with Bizo, with Kai Wagner sending in crosses. And the one thing that Club America were afraid about was Bizo and Kai Wagner getting all this space down on the flanks and sending in crosses into the box. And so they took that away really early on. Like we were talking about with Sergio's pass to Gazdag to pass it to Casper. That was like the only promising moment that the Union had down the wing on the night. And that was like I said, 2 minutes into the game. So after that, Club America okay, no more chances out wide from these guys. These guys are going to hurt us from out wide. And so they really forced the Union to go and attack them down the middle. And when I had Jordan Wiegand on the podcast to preview this game, the one thing that I said was, where are Club America the strongest at? It is right down the middle of the field with Richard Sanchez and Aquino. And who hurt the Union the most? Those 2 guys. Richard Sanchez was phenomenal on the night. He scored a goal. Unlucky. Look, we can complain about the penalty and everything. The wall does its job, right? They block the initial shot. Richard Sanchez sends the ball in. It deflects off of Gazdag. And when you see the goal the first time, you're like, why didn't Andre Blake react to this? And then you go ahead and you see the replay, and it's like, oh, yeah, the ball hit right off of Daniel Gazdag's back. There's nothing Andre Blake could have done in that moment. But I really thought if the Union had a chance, they had to win that midfield battle. And I think us Union fans, we can agree that they did not win that midfield battle at all.
No. 100%. You know, I think we're doing a lot of complaining, and that's not to take anything away from Club America. They executed their game plan to a T. Sanchez absolutely dominated us through the middle. They forced it was almost just like an NFL team you see that can't stop the run. You know, they just run it right at you. They come right at you and say, hey, or if you can't stop it, you know, we're just going to keep coming at you. And that's exactly what they did. They broke through the press. They executed their game plan. And now they're taking a 2-0 lead up into Subaru Park. So we're going to have to see. It's a huge leap and bound. But I still hold faith in our boys in blue that we can get it done.
Like I said, I see more people joining. So, I mean, if you guys want to speak, go ahead and just request the chat. Whatever you guys want to bring up. We're here to talk about it all and get your venting out and just let your thoughts be heard. Because, look, there's a lot of different opinions all over social media from Union fans. And look, this wasn't just Union fans. I feel like the Philadelphia Union, they are representing the rest of MLS, trying to get to a final to be the first MLS team to win the CCL. So it's not just the Union fans that are rooting for the Union. It's the whole of MLS, I feel like. And we'll keep talking about it, right? Just to go down 2 goals is unfortunate, but it's definitely doable. And Richard Sanchez gets the goal, draws a penalty, was phenomenal on the night. But Bizo, again, I want to go back to Bizo real quick and just talk about the game he was having before he got injured, right? He had 1 interception, 3 tackles, 3 out of 3 ground duels, 16 touches. Bizo was just getting started, and he only played 34 minutes, I believe it was, and he couldn't deal with the pain. Look, all the kahunas this guy had to carry on, you know his mouth had to be throbbing, but he was like, this is the biggest game so far in my career, and I'm going to carry on. I'm playing in one of the biggest stadiums, one of the most hostile stadiums in the world, not just in North America, in the entire world. And so I give Bizo a ton of credit for trying to carry on in this game. And it's unfortunate because we've seen so much this season where, I know I've talked about it on the show, where the Union attacking a lot more down the right side of the field with Bizo compared to the left side of the field with Kai Wagner, because Bizo's been so good in the attack. And look, the last couple of weeks, defensively, Bizo's had some mistakes, but his 34 minutes in the game, minus this one poor header that he played in the middle of the field where no Union player could get it, which eventually led to a shot, which Andre Blake came up big with the save in the 11th minute, which was, again, by Richard Sanchez. He makes a late run into the box, gets a free header. Jack Elliott is nowhere near the ball. But Baiza played good, and I wonder what the Union could have done if Baiza was out there on the night for even longer. Now, look, on the flip side of that, I thought Alvis Powell came in, played fantastic. He's been out with a hamstring injury. He looked good with Jamaica in the Gold Cup. But he comes on for 56 minutes in the game, had 3 clearances, 1 interception, 2 tackles. He won 2 out of 3 ground duels, 2 out of 2 aerials, where Baiza won 1 out of 2 aerial. He had 24 touches on the night. Now his passing could have been a lot better. 5 out of 11, only 45%. But Powell, he was really good on the night, I thought, coming in for Baiza, where, like I said, he was coming off a hamstring injury the last 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, and it's not like, I mean, you go down there with the aspect of, you always be ready for game time, but you don't expect, a huge collision leading to an injury, and that's how you're going to get your clock coming off a hamstring injury. But, that being said, he still played phenomenal, but I totally agree. What would have happened if Mbaizo stays in longer and puts in more of those supreme crosses like he does? Would we have scored at least one crucial away goal? We don't know. I still think he played great, but it's a big question mark. It's one of those what-if situations that I think we're going to have to sit here and think about for, until the second leg. What if we scored another one? What if he played longer? It's leaving a lot of questions for us.
Absolutely. Well, we got a new guy in here. So at Nola Hammers, you are up to speak. How are you doing, man?
Hey, great to hear you guys. First time listening all the way from New Orleans. I just wondered, you were talking about didn't have any game down the wings. Do we really have a sufficient number 10 without Aronson and Montero gone? And also, does Elsinho have any impact anymore, or have we lost him? That's what I want your opinion on.
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about Elsinho real quick. Man, look, the one thing I'll say, right, I believe in his limited time with the Union. He leads the Union in passes. Last night he was 4 out of 4 in passes, which, okay, look, that's not a ton, right? But I think, look, there's going to be people biased. Elsinho, his legs are gone. He still has good footwork, right? But he's definitely not as fast as he was in 2019. It seems like, at least in the league when he's subbed on, that teams are really starting to know what Elsinho is going to do. When he's doing his moves and everything, teams are not falling for it this much. They're waiting for him to fully commit before they make a challenge. So I don't know why Jim brought in Elsinho when he's 35, 36 years old. I would have brought in Quinn Sullivan, a guy who's younger, but I don't know. Maybe Jim didn't want Quinn Sullivan coming in there starting a fight. I appreciate what Elsinho has done, but I don't think Elsinho is what he was in 2019. And look, it happens, and I'm not going to fault Elsinho for that. It's just his age is catching up to him, just like Ali Bedoya. And we see fans complain about that all the time on social media. It's like, why is Ali out there? Why aren't you bringing in Anthony Fontana? Now, look, I know Anthony Fontana has a concussion, so he hasn't been there in a while. But look, Quinn Sullivan, Jack McGlynn, you can sub in these guys for Ali Bedoya. It's okay to give Ali Bedoya a rest. And then to your question about the number 10, Daniel Gazdag is the player they brought in to play the number 10. But you were talking about Brendan Aronson and Jamir Montero. And look, we all remember 2020 with how well the Union played in 2020, where both Jamir Montero and Brendan Aronson split time at the number 10, where you would see constantly within the game where these guys would switch between the 10 and the 8. And that's what hurts about not having Jamir Montero here, because I thought Jamir and Daniel Gazdag, they would, just like Brendan and Jamiro did last season, they would switch between the 10 and 8. But not having Jamiro, I think that was a killer last night. Now, granted, he was going to miss the game anyway on yellow cards. But I'm not here to jump on Daniel Gazdag's back. He's played 10, 11 games so far for the Union. And we got to figure that he's played 60-plus games this season so far for the Union, for his club in Hungary, with qualifiers with the Hungarian national team. That's a lot of miles on his legs. So whatever we get out of Daniel Gazdag this year, I think is going to be a plus. I don't expect him to tear the league up halfway through the season just with the amount of games that he's played. So I think bringing in Daniel Gazdag was the right move. It does suck that we're losing Jamiro Monteiro. Now, nothing's been announced yet where he is going. And like I said, he wouldn't have played in the game against Club America. But the one thing I think we would have noticed is when Jamiro Monteiro is playing for this team, he's constantly getting 70-plus touches for the team. And he's so shifty. He's so fast at dribbling out of dangerous spots where opposition put him in. And it hurts not having a player like that. Daniel Gazdag's not as fast, not as shifty as Jamiro Monteiro. But we've got to just be fine with what we have. Tyler, your thoughts with the number 10 position with Daniel Gazdag being the guy going forward?
Well, I think it's more of a general thought that I've been having in this season coming up with some of the results not going our way, even in league play. And, this team is growing into a big club. We had huge success in 2020, lifted the Supporters' Shield. We had a huge departure in Aronson leaving, and now Monteiro might be on the way out. With all this youth is going to come growing pains. And I'm not just saying this to put some kind of damage control on it so we all can feel better at the end of the night, but there's a lot of changes going on in the club, so I don't think we're seeing the best Union we can see yet, especially with Gazdag having so many miles on his legs. Like you said, that was a perfect example. Took the words out of my mouth even. I think we're going to get through. I think we're going to get good results.
Yeah, you're good, man. I guess it looks different on my end. People are asking how do they click to speak? So Nola Hammers and Tyler, obviously you guys have the speak option. How'd you guys do it? Because it looks totally different on my end than your end.
Well, if you're on mobile, like a, say, iPhone, like me, if you bring up the actual Twitter Spaces and you click it, there will bring up a mic thing. You have to turn your mic on your phone, and you can request to speak when you turn it on.
Yeah, there's a little, if you touch it, there's a little request button in the bottom left on the iPhone, and then when you allow it, it says you can turn your mic on. So, I really appreciate that, guys. And Gazdag has a lot of graft, has a lot of heart. I have appreciated that. Just the speed, there's a couple through balls played to him that he couldn't catch up to, like Santos would have, or Monteiro would have. So I back him. It's just I'm not seeing it yet, and your point is well taken.
Absolutely. Now, real quick, while I have you here, obviously your name's Nola Hammers, so I'm going to assume you're a West Ham fan. I know this isn't a Premier League podcast, but your thoughts on how West Ham are going to do in the Premier League this season, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks so much for requesting about that. From Philly originally, followed West Ham as my Premier League team, and now I kind of write for a little West Ham thing. But it's really about what I would love for West Ham is what I see in Philly is just the scouting network and Ernst Tanner, what he's done, and I wish we had that at West Ham. Right now, we're struggling to even fill a full squad. We have probably 24 players, whereas Chelsea has 45 players. And I'd really just like to see a full team. But we've got what we have picked up, which Philadelphia Union have, which I love about that is graft players who put a shift in. We've got a good D. We've got that first team, but once you go to the bench, we have nothing. So I'm hoping for a repeat of last season with a 6th or 7th position, but I really we may flesh out like Philly's fleshing out, where it's just not the same team, and there's just that something missing. So I've got a lot of hopes up. Sunday's our first game against Newcastle, so hopefully we go in there and show some fight, and then pick up some players in the window that's like 3 days left because we're in Europa League this year.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like using Champions League, it's like if you don't have the players to do both, you're going to be hurting. So kind of following them simultaneously, hoping for the best.
Absolutely.
But thanks for the inquiry.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sure. Look, last season was a great year for all you West Ham supporters. Being a Manchester United fan myself, man, having David Moyes as our manager, being so hyped when we were saying, "Come on, David Moyes, play like Fergie's boys." Yeah, it didn't go that way, right? But for West Ham, you guys finally had finally had a good season. Like you said, now you guys are in Europe, and hopefully the amount of games that you guys are playing this season doesn't regress what you guys did last season. Because I think the Hammers have a really good squad where they can continue to compete for the top 10 spot. But let's go ahead and talk about the Philadelphia Union and drive it back to that. About your point with Daniel Gazdag, we're not having the pace. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that is the one thing that I will complain about, is where sometimes it seems like he gives up on balls. Now, is that because his knees are hurting? Now, if people remember, the reason he pulled out of the Euros with Hungary is because he had swelling in his knee. They weren't sure how serious that was. Now, the good thing is it was nothing torn, just swelling in the knee, and just some rest put it down. And I'm sure a lot of that has to do with the amount of games that he played. And now, is that an excuse for why he's not hustling down balls? No. We saw it last night, right, where it was 3-on-2 with the Union. Casper could have done better with the pass. He's passing to Gazdag, but Gazdag stops his run inside the box. Now, would he have got to the ball if he was going full speed? Who knows? And I don't know, like we were talking about with Mike, with the altitude being so high down in Mexico, maybe that plays into effect with the hustle that these guys weren't giving as much as we were used to. But I think we'll be just fine with Daniel Gazdag. And like I said, whatever he does this season, I think we'll be fine with. It will be a plus. Once he gets a full preseason under his feet next year, then I think that's when people can start to judge Daniel Gazdag. I said the same thing when we brought in Andrew Wooten in 2019. Whatever we got from him in 2019 would be a plus. Obviously, we never got anything in 2019, nor did we get anything in 2020 from Andrew Wooten. Tyler, though, let's go ahead and just look at some more stats here where the Union were just completely outperformed by Club America. I know shame in saying Club America, they were faster. They were able to put passes together very, very well. They were better on the night than the Union. They more than certainly deserve to win. 2-0, I'm not sure about that, but they definitely deserve to get a goal. I mean, the one thing that really impressed me about Club America is their runs they were making off of each other, which meant that the Union had to react fast to that. Seeing those runners, as soon as they passed the ball, they were going forward. And so that meant that whether or not that was Jose Martinez, Leon Flock, they had to track these guys running into the Union's attacking third. And look, in the first half, we saw Club America lead with 73% possession, where the Union only had 27. 7 shots for Club America, 3 on target, 4 shots for the Union, 1 on target. The Union had 1 shot blocked, while Club America blocked 2 shots. But the one thing that stood out to me is, look, the Union only completed 57 out of 94 completed passes, which is only good for 61%. That is terrible. Like we were talking about earlier, where the Union, they love attacking down the wings. They could not attack down the wings because Club America forced them to attack down the middle of the field. So that meant that the Union had to be very, very disciplined defensively. And you go ahead and look. They had 8 tackles in the first half, 7 interceptions, 12 clearances, compared to Club America's 1 tackle, 3 interceptions, 1 clearance. The Union played very, very well defensively, and the 2 goals that they gave up doesn't justify with how well that they played. I'm going to go ahead and approve somebody else here to speak, and I'm now just approved. It is Randy Union, I think his Twitter handle says. You were able to speak, so go ahead. Your thoughts on this game against Club America? I don't know. Go ahead, Tyler. While he tries to figure that out and everything, whenever you can get that to work, Randy, just cut one of us off and you're free to go. But
can I pipe up again? To your point where we didn't get any passage play and they forced us to play us up the middle, but we didn't even have any play in the center.
We didn't.
The question is, there was where I viewed it, it was a 4-3-3 that we were playing. Were we actually playing a 4-3-3 instead of a 4-4-2 diamond? Because I don't understand why Jim Curtin switched it up to a 4-4-2 diamond. We could have gone narrow and dominated that way.
Yeah, look, I don't know if you were in here when we were talking about the heat map by Casper, but if you look, if you go on one of these analytic sites and everything, you look at the the heat map, and Casper is playing primarily out wide. I mean, on paper, it looked like the Union were playing 4-4-2. Now, you're always going to make in-game adjustments. So would they have switched to a 4-3-3? I'm not sure if they did, but the one thing I am sure about is that Casper was hugging the right side of the field a lot on the night, and I'm looking at Sergio Santos's heat map right here. He was really active on the left side of the field, where he was more active centrally than Casper was. So I mean, I guess moments in the game, I guess it was possible that they played 4-3-3 on the night, but I don't blame Jim Curtin for going with a 4-4-2 diamond because it's what we're used to playing, right? And now I'm looking at Daniel Gazdag heat map where we were talking about he was supposed to be in the number 10. And just like Sergio Santos, Daniel Gazdag was more active on the left side of the field out wide compared to centrally where he should have been. And yeah, where you're right. The Union had nothing going for them down the middle of the field. And I guess it is pretty telling looking at this heat map where the Union couldn't get anything going out wide, where they were forced to play through the middle. But looking at these heat maps, yeah, they couldn't get anything going through the middle. Tyler?
Sorry about that on connection issues. But yeah, no, exactly. I think, we just got out almost like smash mouthed, where we just got punched in the mouth and we couldn't recover. It's just so frustrating to see this on paper and be so close. Other than passing percentage, I do not. That's unexcusable for this Philadelphia Union team. But besides that, we played them so well and so even. It's just these poor mistakes and great chances and brilliant runs by Club America. They did their damage. They struck at the perfect times, and, that's why they're carrying the lead. So here we are.
Yeah, that's why I wish we saw Mike Thomas or Rich Laurie in here who went to the game where we could get their their thoughts from their viewpoint. Because, look, seeing the pictures on social media, it seemed like they were sitting up very high. And now I know when I went to the Atlanta United game in June, I liked our seats because we set up high and everything. So you can really see the field and just see the positioning of the players where you don't really get that so much on the TV. So I'm sure it probably was a mixture of just constantly trying to move into space, whatever the Union could do. But they for sure started in a 4-4-2 diamond. I think Ricky unmuted himself. So, I mean, Ricky, I know you love talking tactics and formation. Your thoughts when seeing any 4-4-3?
I think it was interesting because didn't he definitely say we were going to come out in like a double D-mid formation, and then we definitely looked like a regular 4-4-2 at the beginning of the game?
Yeah, he did say that a couple weeks ago. I don't know why Jim would bring that up. Say, yeah, it's something we experienced with in practice with Jose and Flock as the two number 6s, and it's his same old 4-4-2 diamond. Look, I have no problem with it. I think it's the right call. It's like you don't want him second guessing himself where, he was willing to live and die by the 4-4-2. So it's what the players are most used to playing in. But it is interesting. And then especially if you look at the New England game where we tried 3 in the back, or you can argue it was a 5 in the back with Leon Flock and Bizo out wide. I thought maybe there was a chance that we would see that, but no, we went straight back to the 4-4-2 diamond.
I think that once Jim's forced to make that sub with Mbizo in the first half, and he just automatically goes to Alvis Powell, that I kind of felt like at that point that's like so obvious a decision. But if you had just played with the 3 in the back the other day, I felt like it might have been a baller move at that point just to throw Finley on instead and just have, let's say, for 20 minutes. It was 20 minutes before halftime, right? Just have Bedoya play in like a makeshift right back for like 20 minutes, get to halftime, and then you can do this double sub where Shabilko was absolutely useless in this game. And then the next sub he makes is the most ridiculous sub I think I've ever seen the Union have, where it was Gazdag out for Burke, right?
Yeah, it was.
And then you're throwing. I think Shabilko was supposed to be the 10 at that point.
Yeah.
And he's already not doing anything. And I know earlier you said you're like he does so much like off the ball and he holds up the ball, and it's just like it got to a point where like Santos was doing more hold up play than Shabilko, and half the time Shabilko's nowhere near the play. And I think we were talking during the New England game or something, and it was like Shabilko's like so far behind the play half the time, and it's like that's your main forward, and there's like a counterattack, and the main forward is nowhere to be found in the box on like a late run. Like not even like Michael Bradley does that thing for Toronto where he used to score like a goal every game against the Union with a late arriving run. And Casper's like slower than Michael Bradley sometimes, which is confusing. And then the third sub, Ilsinho for Shabilko at that point, where it's just like I was texting somebody about the game this morning, and it was essentially like, in like the 88th minute where Alejandro Bedoya just like lays down on the field, and it's just like you already have a man that for the last like 2-3 months of this season, at about like the 60th minute, you're like, oh, he can't run anymore. And then you send that guy to Mexico and have him play 90, 95 minutes. And it's just like you have two players on the bench in like Quinn Sullivan and whoever that you could bring on to do anything. Like Quinn Sullivan has been really good off the bench, has been really good as a starter. I can understand starting Bedoya, especially in Azteca. He's got all the rest. But you can't tell me that Ilsinho was the best choice to bring on. And that whole conversation about, like, you throw Ilsinho on, and we've been throwing him on as a right wing back.
Yeah, crazy, right?
And, like, in that New England game where he came on as a right wing back, where it's just like, you took the guy whose only skill is to seemingly skill move on people and took him farther away from the goal in hopes that he would create something in the attack. And then last night they were like, oh, we'll put him at the 10, even though like even when he was 30 when he joined the team, he couldn't do anything at the 10. And now it's like, well, let's see what happens for 10 minutes with Ilsinho at the 10. And you don't even use two of your subs when it's like we got a big game in the like hardest place to play in the whole hemisphere, right? And you're just like, oh, let's just try what we can do. And like Quinn Sullivan's probably on the bench, like, Jim, what did I do to you? Like clearly I should be on the field right now. Alejandro Bedoya can't even like walk at the 90th minute. And I just kind of felt like at that point, like the first sub, whatever, I don't know why at halftime you don't bring somebody on to get some sort of spark, because you can use a halftime sub and just be like, well, here's a sub. It doesn't cost me anything. At that point, I probably would have taken Shabilko off at halftime because he's not doing anything. And then Bedoya, I don't know if you remember this when we were at the Toronto game on that Wednesday, and I texted you at halftime, and I was just like, Bedoya should not be on the field anymore. We're up 3-0. And then I'm pretty sure Bedoya played that whole game.
Yeah, he might have played the whole game.
And it's like every 5 minutes I'm just looking around, like the game is still 3-0. Why is Bedoya playing right now? And I think like the last subs were made in like the 80th minute, and it's just like Jim Curtin's refusal to like make the obvious subs, like Quinn Sullivan on for Bedoya at the 60th minute every game, or at least try to, put the team in a position to succeed. If Shabilko's not doing anything, do something with him before the 80th minute. Yeah,
definitely. So I'm glad you brought up the whole point about Casper going to the 10. where, again, just going back to his heat map, where you would hope that we play as a 10. Wasn't anywhere near the 10 spot. Like I said, he was mostly active as a right winger, right midfielder, and then he was pretty hot in the center of the field as a defensive midfielder. And then going back to El Senior, where I guess he came on to play as the number 10 for Casper. I don't know. I mean, he was pretty oblivious out there. But he's a higher heat map back, closer a center back than he did as the number 10, which I guess I kind of do believe that, because El Senior, just bringing him on there, I mean, I feel like Jim just said, all right, let's bring on El Senior just to bring on El Senior. Now, actually, I do want to go back to a point where we were talking about the pace of Jamiro Monteiro, the shiftiness of Jamiro Monteiro. You're a big Anthony Fontana guy, Ricky, obviously. And if people don't know that from not listening to the podcast, do you think Anthony Fontana could have made any difference playing as number 10 in this game? Now, I know you like to say Anthony's better as a second striker, but Anthony, in my opinion, would have gave a lot better of an effort than Casper and El Senior did, right?
I think what should have happened in this game is you should have started Burke and Santos up top, because if any of the three strikers can come off the bench and be useful, I think it can be Casper or Santos. And having Burke come on when you had him come on, it was like, oh, nice, we actually have some pace on the bench. Usually it's Santos will come on and the other two will start. And I just felt like it would have made a lot of sense to start Burke and Santos, so you have a lot of speed. You bring Casper on. Maybe you bring Casper on as a 10, as your like backup 10, because you don't have Fontana. And now, like, Fontana definitely is more like you say, a second striker, but I don't think he really works as a second striker. He's definitely not like a creative number 10. He's definitely more of a goal scoring number 10 is what like he really comes out to. Is he's not really creating chances for other players. He's kind of doing it for himself, which is probably the problem that Jim Curtin really has with Anthony Fontana, is he's not Brendan Aronson, and that's a huge problem. You know, you have Brendan Aronson for 2 years, and then you have Anthony Fontana, who I think a lot of people were like thinking that maybe it was because he like doesn't track back, he doesn't do all the defensive work that, you know, Jim expects from his players. But then you watch him do that defensive work in the games that he's played, and it just happens to be that, personally, let's look at what we see from Ilsinho 2 years ago. That's basically what we got from Fontana last year at the end of the year. Like, Fontana came on how many times and was the bench option. And I think Jim has a real problem in getting, if I have Ilsinho on the bench or I have Fontana on the bench, they can come on and make stuff happen. Because, like, Fontana is the sort of player that just makes stuff happen. If you look at those, like, New England games last year where, like, some of those goals, like, nobody else on the team is making some of that stuff happen. Ilsinho does it in a more tricky way. Fontana's much more of a... I get, like... for those who have like watched like the Gold Cup this summer, Fontana has like the Matthew Hoppe, Clint Dempsey, he tries shit nature to his game. And it's not in a, I'm going to do some step overs like Ilsinho. It's, I'm just going to go at goal. I'm going to try to score. It might not work. And I think when you have a player like Jamiro Monteiro, you can afford to not play a guy like that. And now we're at the point where I don't think Gazdag is a complete like for Monteiro. He doesn't seem to have the defensive bite that Monteiro has. I think he has more of a brutish defensive strategy, because you'll see he definitely seems like the type of player that is aggressive on his defensive moves, and you'll see him like nudge a guy off the ball like completely unnecessary. And it's kind of that Philly idea that we all have of like what Philly sports are. It's like, oh, the Broad Street Bullies. And I get that from Gazdag a lot, because you like see him like just get into other players. And I think Fontana would have been a great player to have off the bench in this game, because I don't think Ilsinho's the guy to come on against Club America. I think you got to have somebody that's willing to do stuff, and Ilsinho just doesn't have that anymore. And I think we all knew that last year.
Yeah, I feel like Randy or Ricky, to follow up on you, it seems like Fontana's almost like an inverted, which we could have used because we couldn't play a classic winger. Bombing balls in from the inside, but he could have definitely cut to that center. He has a great finishing ability.
I think there's a few players on this team that were clearly like grew up in the old system, the 4-2-3-1. You look at Anthony Fontana, he probably like spent 5 years in his youth playing on the wing, and then they were like, oh, you're a 10 now because we don't have wing positions anymore. You look at Quinn Sullivan definitely was a right winger. Like, he was not meant to be a right midfielder, but he is a good enough like player that, learning from Bedoya this last 6 months, he can adapt. He's young enough to adapt. I don't think Anthony Fontana is a young enough player to do the things that are like Jim expects from a number 10 currently. And this like last month, a lot of these games that we've had this last month would have been great games for Anthony Fontana to be in. Playing like the last game he played in Atlanta, we were all there, or me, Todd, were there, and that is just not a team Anthony Fontana's like supposed to play against. But you look at like New England, this game against Club America, like he is exactly the type of player that I feel like I would have liked to see on that field. I don't necessarily think he does anything, and I don't think the confidence would have been there, especially the way the year's gone for Anthony Fontana.
Well, one thing is for sure, the Union, they are lacking scoring goals this season. I think they have 25 in MLS play in 19 games. And that's one thing that Anthony Fontana gave the Union last season. He was, number 3 on the Union's list with 6 goals last season. Now, granted, a lot of those goals came against New England. But regardless, he's putting the ball in the back of the net, and that's something that Casper and Sergio Santos aren't doing in the CONCACAF Champions League. They're not doing that consistently in MLS play. And for a team that wants to be a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference, that want to make a push for the Supporters Shield, which isn't going to happen this season, you need a consistent striker. And that's like, I get the argument from people all the time. They're always like, we need a number 10. We need a number 9. We need a DP number 10. We need a DP number 9. Yeah, I think everybody can agree that we do need a DP number 9. And I'll be curious to see what Davo can do. He needs to find form in MLS play so he can make an impact for CCL. I feel like that's the whole reason why we went out and got him on loan from Corinthians, is so we can use him in CCL play. Now, look, granted, we're going to hope that we make a long run in the playoffs and he can be around for that. But for a guy who's been pretty inconsistent in the second tier in Brazil soccer, it's probably not what a lot of Union fans want. But seeing clips at the Union have posted on social media, seeing him get Jack Elliott's ankles. Now, granted, he's scoring against Joe Bendick, but I am hopeful that this guy can take a spot from Sergio Santos, from Casper Shabelka, because we just need somebody that can be consistent and put the ball in the back of the net. Ed, Ricky, any of you guys, I mean, I know, Ricky, you've been speaking. Ed, you're able to speak now. I mean, your thoughts, man. Anything you want to talk about?
Good to hear from you, Ty. After this crazy, it's just a thing that conceptually that I haven't really wrapped my head around. Is that like when we were like waiting for this team to exist, like, you know, they had the expansion draft, and now we actually have players, and they had a name, and somehow you know, in the back of your mind, and very far in the back of your mind back then, you think, well, if this team is good enough to, like, and we almost won the Open Cup a few times. If the team's good enough to win an Open Cup or get top 2 or whatever, or win the Eastern Conference or whatever it takes to get CONCACAF Champions League, it always is one of those things. Like, who are we going to play? Kevin Kikado always talks about this on the podcast. He would hypothetically talk about playing Saprissa in the CONCACAF Champions League, and then it did happen, and we beat them. And that was supposed to be like the benchmark. So you beat them, you beat Atlanta, which it's the biggest, away win at Atlanta ever still. I mean, it was this year, but that was a thing. And then here you are in the semifinals against, the biggest team in Mexico and the biggest team in the continent, really. And it's bittersweet with the fans, but, we're all dealing with COVID right now. Everybody is. But to just have that happen. And then, like you said earlier, like, you get to the game, and we've been following everybody's Twitter, Rich and everybody posting from Mexico. And so there's just so much build up to this. And then it finally happens, and they go out and they put a chance, Casper has that chance early. And I'm like, all right, they're going to have the ball, but we're in this. And I think we played well. And I think I came away proud of how we played. The foul, everybody's going to argue about the penalty, and the first goal was just unlucky for Blake. It hits off Gazdag in the wall or whatever, and it bounced off the wall, and then he hit off him on the deflection on the way back in. Kind of like Andre, nobody can save that. It's just a freak accident. And then, they could have attacked a little better. They could have pressed a little harder, but you're in altitude. You have to manage all that, the minutes, and then they played well and bad break on the penalty, but they come home with not an insurmountable, lead. They could tie it and go to extra time. It's not impossible, but this is a good Club America team. And I came away feeling proud of the whole thing, even though we didn't bring our best game, but played pretty well still.
Yeah, look, I think that's the big takeaway for me as well is leading up to this game, like, obviously, I'm excited being a Union fan that we've made it this far, but I think the people that I'm most excited for are the people that have been around this team since 2010, or even being a part of bringing the team to Philadelphia. Like, this is stuff that I'm sure a lot of people, maybe you guys listening to the podcast, maybe you guys speaking, maybe you guys have been around since 2010, where you guys have dreamed for days for the Union to play in the CONCACAF Champions League. Maybe you thought it would never happen, especially in the early days when things were terrible for the Union, where they couldn't get back-to-back wins, where they were getting blown out. But they had a nice stadium in Chester, right? I guess they had that going for them. But
yeah, the atmosphere back then was always good. The fans with this team have always been great. There's been some lean games with bad weather and stuff like that, but even back then, the fans were great. It was just, and, they would win at home. MLS is weird that way. Like, bad teams can win at home, and good teams have to win on the road, and that's usually the difference. Back then, they could still win at home, and if they would beat Red Bull or DC at home, it was a big deal, and everybody was into it. But the concept of getting in the Champions League and then getting to this point in Champions League was always like very lofty in the fan mind, I think.
yeah, and look, to see the Union playing Azteca, like, maybe a Union player, maybe people that were around the team, maybe they had hopes that, maybe one day we'll see a Union player play for the national team, play down in Azteca. But to see the team itself play down in Azteca, like we talked about earlier in the podcast, where this is not only the biggest stadium, the most intense stadium in North America, it's one of the most intense in the whole world. And to see the Union go down there, put up a fight, they didn't get blown out. I think half the fan base expected the Union to get blown out 4-5. Maybe some of the journalists that cover this team thought the Union would get absolutely blown out. But if you go ahead and look at the second half, the Union were like, okay, look, we survived the first half. We gave up one goal. I think it was all about the Union finding their feet in this stadium, in this atmosphere. And if they don't give up multiple goals, then they'll be fine. And the second half, they still lost the possession battle, 59-41. The Union still had 4 shots like they had in the first half, where Club America had 6 shots, 2 were in target. One of them, obviously, is the penalty kick. 3 shots inside the box, 3 shots outside the box. That's one thing I talked about in my keys to the game is watch Club America shoot from outside the box. Yeah, that's how they scored their first goal. Again, unlucky. But again, just the Union couldn't get anything going. passing wise in this game. 87 out of 133 completed passes, which is good for 67% passing. I mean, that is terrible, right? It is really, really bad that the Union just couldn't string any passes together. But then again, I look at what they did in the second half defensively. 11 tackles, 4 interceptions, 6 clearances. They played so well defensively. And the 2-0 doesn't do it any justification for how well they played defensively on the night. You go ahead and look for overall stats. 62 duels won compared to 50 duels won for Club America. Club America, I said, love crossing the ball. They only completed 4 to 20 crosses. The Union did good to deal with Club America's crosses. 15 out of 19 completed tackles for the Union. 25 aerials won, 389 touches. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know right there. 389 touches compared to 618 touches for Club America. Just the Union couldn't get on the ball, and hopefully we see them get on the ball more in the second half. But out of all the stats I just gave, the thing that's most telling is the Union on the night had 144 accurate passes in the 2 halves, but only 76 in Club America's half. That is terrible, where the Union were hardly able to pass in Club America's half, and that's, again, just credit to Club America. They're a good team, and it is a little bit scary to think about that Club America, they've only played 3 league games. What if they were halfway through their season, like when this competition first starts, and we see MLS teams not even starting their MLS season, but they come in and get blown out? Now, luckily for us, the Union, we saw them handle business down in Costa Rica against Saprissa. Like you said, Ed, biggest home defeat that club, Atlanta United have ever suffered, with 3 goals given up. But the Union have to be better in the final third. And we've seen that in MLS play, where the Union, sometimes they lose their head. And going back to Daniel Gazdag, he's definitely not caught up with his teammates yet, but I don't want to blame this guy too much. Like I said earlier, whatever we can get out of him is a positive. You can definitely blame Casper. Sergio Santos, I wouldn't blame. Look, this guy ran his socks off last night, trying to win the ball back for the Union. This guy's always chasing down everything, and I do like us feeding Sergio Santos the ball. And going back to bringing in Davo, I think that's a good substitution right there. Is when Sergio Santos's legs are tired, you bring in Davo, who has pace. Look, pace kills. We saw it against Toronto, and I just want to see the Union, if they can find ways to get crosses in from out wide. We were talking about how Club America did a good job shutting that down from the Union, their attack out wide. But to win 25 aerials, where the Union had a corner kick, the only corner kick in the first half, where Jack Elliott wins the ball, these guys aren't tall. And so I feel like if the Union can get crosses into the box, whether it's off corner kicks, whether it's off just crossing the ball out wide, I think the Union can cause problems for sure in the final third in the penalty box of Club America's, if they can get those crosses in. Just whoever wants to jump in, go ahead.
Here's the thing. And this is Randy, by the way. Sorry, oh, you want to go?
Go ahead, Randy.
Okay, yeah. Sorry about that. I mean, I'm really confident in Wagner, Elliott. I know some people are questionable about Glesnes, but they've been solid. Before the season started, Jim thought we were going to have Gaddis there. So I think the whole right back situation is kind of touchy right now. So, that's tough. And also, the whole Montero thing, a lot of this is not what we thought. So we're kind of, if you ask me, we're kind of in this like wiggle room where we have some players who are, a little too old, some players who are a little too young, and, we're in a tough spot. So for the rest of the season, it's going to be kind of tough if we don't bring in another player. Obviously, we have a month until, the next Champions League match. So what I'm hoping is, the defense can, just stay tough, stay tight, and then we can find a way to get those corners, to get Elliott Glesnes on them. Because, it just takes one to, come back, and then that changes the whole game up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't see why the Union can't score a goal down in Subaru Park. I mean, we're playing at home, right? These guys are, look, for our sake, let's hope that it's cold, where these guys are coming from a warm environment down in Mexico, where if it's cold, who knows how Club America plays, where us Philadelphia Union fans, the players, we're used to the cold. I don't think it's going to be cold in September, but you never know with the weather, right? They're also coming to a totally different sea level and everything, where we were talking about earlier, 7,000 plus, where I don't know how high Chester is above sea level, but I know it's definitely not that high. I mean, look, we're right on the Delaware River, so it's nothing compared to what it is down in Mexico. But yeah, I think the Union can definitely get a goal in the second half. And for people, again, that are listening to Twitter Spaces, you guys are in here live, or whether or not you guys are listening to the podcast, yeah, maybe we should bring this back for a game preview for that game leading up in the first half, just get people's thoughts and everything, because I think that the second leg is definitely doable, even with us being down 2 goals.
Yeah, I was concerned about how, we're talking about the passage play of America, and they were actually doing what Union does, and they were going wide, left to right, and switching sides. I didn't know why we didn't get more simple and just try to play it over the top. I mean, when you have 3 strikers on the pitch, I don't know why they just didn't play a long ball. I also think we should get better, drill more our set piece, because we have such height on our team. And then finally, I was going to say, that we really didn't give up a goal from. I mean, that one kick you could say was after the set piece, but penalties.
Yeah, exactly. Look, they scored no goal from open play. That is, like we were talking about, credit to how well the Union played defensively, where both the Club America's goals came from nothing open play, a penalty kick, and then an unlucky bounce falls, so the dude hits off a Gozdog's back. There's nothing the Union can do. But as we get ready to wrap this up and everything, the one thing I do want to talk about real quick is people blaming the referee. And the one thing I will say before that is I think people should not take things too seriously on social media. I think a lot of people take things way too serious. And so if I made some people angry, Club America fans, with my tweet saying, oh yeah, CONCACAF's helping Mexico, come on, just take a joke. It's nothing serious. But 16 fouls were called against Club America, while 19 were called against the Union. It's pretty fair, where the ref, I know early on was calling a ton of fouls for Club America. The Union, as the game went on, they got better with where they fouled. And they gave way too many fouls away in dangerous spots. Luckily, the Union were able to deal with it. I don't know how the ref didn't go to VAR after the medical staff spent a lot of time on Mbaizo after he lost his tooth. Again, the challenge by El Brujo on Richard Sanchez that resulted in a penalty. If we're being honest, the whole thing started with Brujo not getting rid of the ball faster. If he was able to just clear the ball up from on the field, then this would have been no issue at all. But he gets pressed on the ball way too long, and now he has to make a decision because they're basically right at the net to shoot at Andre Blake. And so Martinez decides, let me slide in here, and gets a little bit of Sanchez. Did he sell it a little bit too much? Yeah, potentially. But my whole issue is when it's not clear and obvious, then what's overturning it? And I know Ed and you guys are Premier League fans, and we saw all the drama last season in the Premier League with the referees having no clue what VAR was. So I feel like here in America, and I'll say in MLS, I won't say CONCACAF, I'll say MLS, I feel like we have a better understanding of VAR than what it is in the Premier League.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think this is like somewhere in the middle. Premier League is like the worst with like the offsides and stuff like that, but MLS has a pretty good handle. They don't VAR everything I would like them to. Sometimes they do the ear thing, and that's that. Here it was, I don't know, I almost felt it coming. I felt once they go to VAR, I'm like, oh, they're definitely going to overturn it. I didn't think it was a clear and obvious overturn. There was contact. I guess you can see that. But I had a problem with the contact. I think he dragged his feet. But it happened fast, so you can't really say he dragged his feet, I guess. And there is contact. But I don't know. I don't know if it was enough to overturn it. I think if he would have called it a penalty, I wouldn't expect him to overturn it the other way either. But it was just a tough break. It was a bit of a reckless challenge, but he's pretty close to getting the ball there. And it's like his trailing foot catches him or something. It was awkward, and it is a shame because, like you said, you went through all the numbers. They defended so well, and I think that was one of the biggest takeaways for a team that gave up 2 goals. They defended for 88 minutes perfectly, almost cleared every cross, headed everything out. They couldn't compete with Club America's midfield. I think we knew that was going to happen, and it does open that Bedoya conversation, and you're missing Montero, and there was all that. But they defended really well, and it's just when it comes down to something like that, like if we would have gone home 1-0 out of there, we would have been ecstatic. But 2-0 on a penalty, and it's a little it puts a damper on it. But like I don't know, it's just people are going to argue on Twitter. It's a controversial call, but it's just one of those things. You can't really do much about it now, and we have to try to score 3 goals at home.
Yeah, that's the whole thing right there is where, it's great if we score 2 goals and then we go into extra time. And I believe if we go into extra time and Club America scores in extra time, then we would still need 2 goals because of away goals. I believe that's how it works.
Yeah, I think that's still going on, yeah.
Yeah, which is so stupid. It's so stupid. It's like, man, you go through the whole 90 minutes, you cancel out the 2 goals scored at home, and now it's basically like a new game, just 30 minutes. And if they score an away goal, then the Union have to score 2 more goals. Now, if that happened,
it's fun. Yeah, it's fun. In some games it's fun. Some games it kind of ruins it. It's a weird rule, but I kind of like it sometimes. But I don't know if we're gonna like it, in the home leg. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. We probably won't like that in the home leg if it does happen. The one thing that scares me is going into penalty kicks. I hate penalty kicks. And like I said, I mean, I know you, Ed, you've been around this team forever, a lot longer than me. And you've seen some penalty kick losses in the Open Cup. And I'm sure a lot of listeners too. You guys are probably scarred from watching the team lose in penalties.
There's something about being there live right behind the goal. You've watched every game that year. It comes down to penalties. And it was a tough game to even get to penalties both times. And then they rip your heart out. And it was I think they were up in one of the shootouts at one point and blew a couple shots at the end. But and I think that's a weird thing with this fan base, the people that have been here for the Open Cup losses, because they were, like all-time sports losses. And then it happens back to back. And then they get blown out in Houston. They become like the Buffalo Bills of the Open Cup. It's almost kind of nice that they haven't had it the last couple of years, because it's another thing that we won't make a run in and lose. We might make a run and lose in this, but this is different, and it's an honor to even be in this tournament. But I think this team comes a long way from those Open Cup penalty shootouts. And I think I would have more confidence in this team in a shootout than I would those teams. I just think the level's higher. Some of those guys just weren't penalty takers. Andre Blake seems to have gotten a lot better making reaction saves on penalties. So it would be a great scenario for us to go up 2-0 and go to penalty, go through extra time and go to penalties. To come back from that deficit and to even lose on penalties would still be a great comeback. So if they get to that point, I'll be happy about it. And I think this team has a better chance there than they used to.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, for fans on social media that was calling for the Corey Burke penalty, they went shoulder to shoulder. I don't think there was a penalty at all on Corey Burke, but I get it. Fans just wanted anything to be called for the Union so we can get that away goal. Look, even if the Union would have lost 2-1, I think we would have been ecstatic too, because we got that away goal, because Club America, they're a good team attacking, and we talked about how they're good in the midfield, and they're going to continue to be good in the midfield. And if Club America scores a goal at Subaru Park, would I be surprised? No, absolutely not. I kind of expect it, but like people have been saying all night, it's a chance for the Union to regroup, find form in MLS, and I'm super excited for what's to come in MLS. Hopefully the Union can start putting the ball in the back of the net and just find their form and everything. The last thing I'm going to say before I go is, look, that game, September 15th, I believe it is, or 16th, one of those days. I think it's the 15th. I think that place needs to be packed. It needs to be full. I know it's a 9 p.m. kickoff. Not ideal at all. Half that stadium, I feel like, is going to be Club America, if not even more. but every single fan in that stadium, they need to be cheering. Let's fill up that stadium. Fans truly and honestly make a difference. If you don't think you make a difference, you do. You might not know the chance. That's fine. Make noise. Make something, because that pushes players on. It gives them the extra boost to make that extra run. These guys are going to come fired up before the game even starts. But hearing that noise, hearing you guys cheer them on, that can push them on to get a goal within the first 10 minutes. And if that happens, the Union have all the confidence in the world. Club America, maybe they start to panic. Now, granted, look, they've played in some hostile environments down in Mexico, and it's a reason why they've won 7 CCL titles. So a hostile environment might not bother them as much as I'm making it out to be, but fans definitely do make a difference, and I hope fans get out. I hope fans are proud of this team. Like Ed was talking about, look, there's been a lot of bad from this team earlier on, and just to make it this far, to go down to Costa Rica, I get it, no fans down there, but to beat Saprissa. Saprisa's a great team from Costa Rica. To beat Atlanta United. Nobody thought that the Union would ever be in the semifinals in the CCL play. Nobody thought that the Union would play a game down in the Azteca. They don't get blown out like people thought they were going to get blown out. There's still hope for this team. We're only down by 2 goals. It's not the end of the world. So I just encourage people to come cheering on this team when they come to Subaru Park to face New York City on Wednesday night. And by the way, the next episode you guys will hear of me is with Glenn Crooks, who is the play-by-play voice for New York City. So we're going to preview that game on a Tuesday. You guys will hear that game on Tuesday. So there's a little plug there for you guys. But if you guys aren't following the podcast on social media, follow @FreeKickPod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Check out the website, The Free Kick Podcast. And wherever you get your podcasts, The Free Kick. And everybody that participated in this tonight on Twitter Spaces, thank you guys so much for showing up. For everybody that had trouble where it wasn't allowing them to speak, or maybe I didn't get to you fast enough, my apologies. I would love to do this again and get you guys back on the show. Like I said, I would love to do a preview episode with you guys heading into this game, getting your guys' thoughts. If we win this thing, even if we lose this thing, we could definitely do this again. Always a blast interacting with different Union fans, hearing different perspectives. But don't lose faith in this team. I certainly haven't. Hopefully, hearing some of these stats, hearing other people talk, hopefully, maybe that should change your mind if you feel like, there's nothing the Union can do in the second leg. Because, look, 2 goals, it's not the end of the world. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is The Free Kick Podcast.